Hey friends, welcome to the channel. I'm Ken Smith and we are going to go ahead and build a model railroad in this shed. Doesn't have electricity, doesn't have anything, but we're going to build it. So let's go inside and see just how much work we got to do to make this happen. So I got to warn you, this is going to be a big project because it's a serious mess in here. I've been using this as studio space for another YouTube channel, and I have just about everything in here down to a camping trailer in this 12 by 20 shed. So I decided that we're going to build a model railroad that fits all in this area here and along this wall, and it should end right about there. Now what even is more of a challenge is there's no electricity in here. So I have to run electricity from the house to here. So because there's no electricity, there's no lights. Now how I've been operating my YouTube channel, my other YouTube channel in the time being is I either run an extension cord out here, or I bring a couple of battery packs and an inverter in here, and that's how I kind of have done things. But I really wanted to build a model railroad on the cheap, or the inexpensive. I don't want to necessarily, I don't like the word cheap, but how can I build a nice looking railroad in a place like this? And if I can do this, anybody can do this. Now some of you might think that I'm actually crazy to even attempt this, but to be honest with you, there's a lot of space here. And one of my objectives was to prove that you could build a model railroad in a shed. So even if you don't have space in your home, maybe you can afford to purchase a shed and build one there. Maybe you already have a shed or an outbuilding and you can build one there. The space that I'm wanting to build this in is about the size of an average bedroom in a home, or maybe a one-stall garage. And the last layout I built, I actually built in a one-stall garage, even though the article was based on building a model railroad in a 9 by 12 room, which is, we're working with a little bit bigger space now. I have a bunch of stuff that I've gathered over the last several weeks. And yes, I've gathered old roundhouse stuff. I've gathered old Tyco stuff. I've gathered old Bachmann stuff, because my goal was to prove that you could take inexpensive freight cars, inexpensive locomotives, and build a very realistic looking model railroad. I've also done the same thing with kits, and I bought what you would think is garbage. And you might think they're garbage, but I actually think that I can turn them into a respectable looking building and structure, and so that's my goal. Now, I also have a long-term vision for this model railroad too, and that is if I make the towns somewhat removable and the structure somewhat removable, I can take an 1880s Victoria era model railroad, and with a little bit of swapping out towns and buildings, I can easily bring this into a Depression era, and I can still maintain all of my scenery. I can still maintain most of the industries that I plan on putting in this model railroad, and replacing horse and buggies and carts and whatnot with old, dilapidated, rusty old Model A's and Model T's and trucks of that era as well. So I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a great idea. It's also the opportunity for you to be able to really extend your modeling into many, many years of enjoyable model railroading. And what I mean by that is, you know, let's say you built this layout and you're done with it. Now what? Well, I don't want to have that mindset that, okay, I'm done, so what's next? It's really fun to be able to, I love building structures. I love working on scenery and those types of things. So if I maintain the basic structure of the railroad itself and the basic scenery of the railroad itself, well, that's done. And I'm not one that, I could add some more trees and that type of thing, but once that portion of it's done to me. And I love building buildings. So what better way of extending that enjoyment without having to extend the railroad by building towns that can easily be removed and replaced. And so that's my goal. And so I'm going to have these lift out sections that I can remove. If we go into the 20s and 30s, in Colorado especially, there were still plenty of wood bridges. So the bridges don't necessarily need to be replaced. The Rio Grande Southern, as an example, had wooden trestles all the way up into the 50s. And some of them are still standing, by the way, and don't necessarily need to swap out any of the bridges. So I don't need to deal with any of that. And the other thing is, if you follow the history of the automobile, a lot of the roads weren't paved yet in the 20s and 30s. And so having dirt roads that still exist in our Victorian era that move up into the 20s and 30s is very realistic, and it's very practical. If you go into Silverton, Colorado, even today, they still got dirt roads. I was just out in Colorado in February of this year, which is 2025, and I was still looking at structures that had been built 100 years before. So it's not unreal at all to just do some minor cosmetic things and extend your modeling time into years by simply doing a few simple things and making it so that you can go ahead and remove that scenery and those structures and replace them with different ones. And if you do it in a way that is fun and enjoyable and still practical, you've got years of enjoyment ahead of you. So that is what our plan is. Now, when I was on vacation, I went ahead and started making some purchases on eBay and some other places. And so when I came back from vacation, here's everything that's been delivered so far. So there's plenty here to already keep me busy and get me motivated. And I'm really excited about that. Whoa, do I have my work cut out for me, but that's okay. I'm up for the challenge. I'm really excited about tearing open these boxes next and seeing exactly what I have to work with to start kit bashing, assembling, painting, weathering, modifying, and all the stuff that comes with model railroading. Have a wonderful day and be blessed.